What is good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode brought to you by the League FFB. Today, we're here for another episode of Let's Talk Dynasty. Now, the Dynasty offseason is among us, so if you're in an active league, the trades are really going to start ramping up over the next couple of months as we approach the NFL draft. Now, today, we're doing a Dynasty trade show review, so if you guys have any Dynasty trades that you've made over the last couple of weeks, go down, join the free Discord that we have linked in the description. That's where all of these trades have been pulled from today for today's episode. But without wasting any more time, let's hop right into today's episode and let's start talking about some Dynasty trades. Boy, how we doing, man?
We doing good, man. A little frustrating this morning with the technical difficulties, but was ready to get rock and roll. It's been a minute since we did a trade review. Let's do it.
Hell yeah. We need to make sure that these technical difficulties that I feel like have been habitual over the last couple of episodes, we got to get this shit figured out, bro. Because I feel like we need to start every episode 20 minutes early.
I know, man. I know. Or I need some upgrades.
Probably both. So anyways, look, we're here for the Dynasty Trade Show. This is a lot of people's favorite stuff. So I don't really want to waste too much time. We got some trades here. I'm going to pull them up on the screen. So as you can see, we got these Dynasty trades up on the screen. This is the first one. It's an easy one. It's a quarterback swap. You got Drake Maye for Kyler Murray in a 10-team league, standard setting, superflex, full PPR, tight end premium, all that stuff. How we feeling about the Maye and Kyler swap?
Man, I know you're going to disagree with me, man, but I'm going to take the Drake Maye side this time, man. I'm just high on Drake Maye. And I wasn't that high on him initially, but I am now, man. Drake Maye, he's looking like baby Josh Allen. And I know that's high praise, but he did that with absolutely nothing around him. Nothing around him and potentially a head coach that was holding him back. Now, with Kyler, it kind of depends on what you want. If you want to rebuild and you got a young guy going forward, it's not like Kyler is old or anything. But if your team isn't ready to compete, then the Drake Maye side should definitely be the side you lean towards. But you know what you're getting with Kyler. You're getting a consistent floor. I think you talked about it, man. You talked about it yesterday, Andrew. With Kyler, you're getting like a consistent 20 points a game out of their quick QB2, QB1 spot. And I think that's the side you go with if you're like a team that's ready to contend. But in this particular trade, I would say it's even based on what each team wants. But me personally, I would lead the Drake Maye side right now.
Yeah, I'm getting into updating all of my rankings here over the next couple of weeks. So on the channel, I'm going to update my quarterbacks and my running backs and all of that stuff. And honestly, when I look at these two guys right now, I feel like these are two players that I probably will end up having probably in the same tier. I think they'll be in the same tier of quarterback. I think they're fairly similar assets as far as probably the upside that they can provide. I think we want Drake Maye to take the step forward, and we need Kyler Murray to get a little bit more consistent. In that same conversation where we were talking about Kyler going out and giving you 20-point weeks, the problem is that he's streaky. So he'll go out and he'll give you a 20, 25-point week, and then he'll go out the next week and give you 12, 14 points. So he's a little bit up and down. He's a little bit streaky. Whether you want to call that because of the offensive play calling there from Drew Petzing this offseason or this last season, or whether you want to call that other things, Kyler Murray, whatever you want it to be, it doesn't really matter to me. The reality is it shows up in the numbers. And I think if I have to make a decision, just being in the same tier, I'm going to lean to the youth. So I will probably take Drake Maye on this side of the deal as well.
That's surprising, man, because I know that you love Kyler Murray. You love
Big
Kyler
fan.
Murray. But, when you look at everything, like all things equal, like as far as like their value, I do agree that they're probably about in the same tier.
Yeah. I agree. All right, let's move on to this next one. Let's go to trade number 2, which is another fairly easy one. We got a 12-team super flex, full PPR, half-point tight end premium, and it's start 9. So you're getting the 2025 pick 108. You're giving up James Conner in a second, basically moving back a whole round, and it gets you James Conner. I mean, I know how I feel about this. How do you feel about this?
I mean, to me, I'm taking a 108, man. I'm taking a 108. I know that around this part of the draft, it's probably going to be, everything's going to level out a little bit between 108 and then 204, would you say? But
yeah, I mean, you have the top that's like pretty top heavy, and then it feels like it really tapers off, and there's going to be a massive tier. I don't know where it's going to start and end right now, but that probably feels like a good range for it.
Yeah, so I mean, 209 James Conner, and I hate to be the guy to just write James Conner off every single season, and he just comes back out and proves me wrong. But come on, like this thing was supposed to conclude like a bit ago, and they still trying him out every year, and he's producing every year. But I'm leaning 108 in this one, man. Like I'm not high on trading. I'm not high on trading for running back in the offseason. It's just not my thing in general.
Yeah, well, one, I'm the same way. I don't want to buy the veteran running back in January. I mean, let alone sometimes I say I don't want to buy them in April or May, and let alone January. But
Yeah.
look, 108. I'm all for you going to get the 108. Obviously, the player on team number one who gets 108. To me, this is a steal. It's not even particularly close, and I'm not saying that to be an ass, but when I look at this is not the compensation that I want to move my pick back. I understand that some people are probably worried because you've heard it. Some people have said like, hey, this class there's some guys at the top, and then it really isn't as talented as you get deeper into this thing. And I think there's still going to be gems. Every year there's always going to be gems. But when you move a pick back, especially right now in the offseason, first of all, I probably would hold it a little bit longer so it gains more value as we get closer to that combine. We get closer to those other things that get people excited about the draft class. And James Conner in the 209 is just not. It's just not it for me, to be honest. So, you were talking about moving a pick back the other day, and you said you wanted a future first and a second. So, James
Yeah.
Conner in the 209, that's not the value of a future first and a second.
No.
So,
No. It's
and I think even a future first and a second is probably probably a pretty modest ask.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's true, but it definitely, like you said, it definitely ain't James Conner in a what could practically amount to a third.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Like no, like somebody in one of our leagues said something to me that was really profound, but it kind of should just be known amongst people to play Dynasty. The closer you get, and I think they might even told me that you sold them this. They said that
Maybe.
they said the closer you get to the draft, the more value those picks will be. So you're making this trade
Mhm.
in January when you could make this trade later down the line, closer to the draft, and you could get a lot more than James Conner in a late second for 108.
Yeah, I typically, at least with my draft capital at this time of the year, I typically tend to operate if they're willing to offer that deal to you today, they'll definitely be willing to offer it to you later, but they might be willing to offer you even more in a month. You know what I mean? So like the further you get down the road, that price is probably just going to keep going up.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And just add on again to go back to it, a running back. I should have put this trade in here with us, but I did a similar trade to this yesterday. But the difference is that I got back a young player, and I had to give up a late third, but I got back a young wide receiver. And like, if you're gonna trade a first, then that's what you should be trying to get back is some young player. Not just definitely run. I'm anti running back to a degree. Like
What was the trade?
it was 109 for George Pickens and 310. So
You gave up
practically
109 and 310?
yeah, yeah,
Okay, and then you got George. Yeah, I like that deal for you still.
yeah,
Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense. And that's probably closer to the deals that you should be trying to look to make if you are planning on moving at the moment.
yeah.
But hey, who knows? Maybe my guy Egbuka will be there at 108, and they'll be able to draft him and feel very happy about it. But let's go to this next trade. 12 teams, super flex, full PPR, tight end premium, start 11. Team one wanted us to know that they tanked in 2024, so they got a bunch of draft capital, and now they're selling it to build their roster. So they traded away the 101, Ashton Jeanty, the 106, and they get Marvin Harrison Jr. and Terry McLaurin. How you feeling about that, knowing that they tanked and are now buying guys like McLaurin and Marvin Harrison?
Well, the application of the plan is questionable, but the return I'm fine with because I don't know in this draft in particular, I probably would consider trading 101 and 106 for Marvin Harrison. I'm
Hmm.
still that high on Marvin Harrison Jr. I still think, let's see, if we're talking about Jeanty, I'm still higher on Marvin Harrison and Jeanty, even though Marvin Harrison didn't live up to the astronomical expectation that the fans put on him. And you're getting Terry McLaurin, who, has an excellent connection with a young quarterback, and he'll probably be having that connection with him until he's unable to keep that level of play going. So I think this deal is fine, to be honest. And I kind of lean the Marvin Harrison, Terry McLaurin side. I just don't know about the overall plan of tanking then acquiring Terry McLaurin as a part of the deal. Like if there's a way to get another young wide receiver instead of Terry McLaurin, I think that would have made a lot more sense.
Yeah, that's the only thing that I would even have, to say about this deal is that Terry McLaurin is like an asset that probably doesn't help a young rebuilding roster or a tanking roster because he is older. I mean, he's quickly approaching that 30-year-old age where it feels like once a wide receiver hits 30, like you can't get shit for them in the trade market. It just feels that way. And it doesn't matter how much they perform. For example, like guys like Devontae Adams and Stephon
Mhm.
Diggs and those guys that always perform when they're on the football field, people are still like, I would never give a first for him. I would never give a first for him. So it just feels like he's slowly approaching that cliff of maybe the age value where the value just dips down. But I think he's going to be productive. I agree with you in the fact that I think that there should still probably be a conversation where, say, Marvin Harrison Jr. was in this draft class. Would it be Marvin or would it be Jeanty at the 101? I think there's a real conversation, and I think people who want to rebuild their roster without buying a running back would draft Marvin Harrison Jr. at the 101. So I think it's a good conversation. I like the process. I think the process is solid. I think it's sound. I probably, again, I'm just gonna say this for the folks at home: the more you hold it, the longer you hold it, you're probably gonna get more than that. So if you maybe at this time, if you could have just traded Marvin for the 101 and you held that 106, I think that 106 nets you even more than Terry McLaurin, in a month. So probably would have done something like that. But overall, I think it's a good trade, and you lock up, I think, a wide receiver one in your fantasy football leagues with Marvin Harrison, and probably production wise, another wide receiver one in Terry McLaurin.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's it right there. So I think we're both good with this deal in general. We just don't know about the plan of tanking and Terry McLaurin being on the
Yeah.
roster.
For the record, I've seen the 101 traded now in two of my leagues. Just yesterday, I saw two 101s traded within an hour. And then I saw this 101 traded, and I saw another 101 traded. I think that's in this episode as well. The 101, people are not a fan of holding that at the moment. People are trying to trade that 101. And I think do you think it's just because the 101 is consensus right now a running back? You think that's why people are just trying to get rid of it?
Well, no, because I also think that the consensus 101 was we had one where it was what Brees Hall. We had was a year where it was Bijan, right? So I
Yeah.
think honestly, I think the reason people are trading it is because their view of the whole overall draft is bad.
I still believe, at least the way I look at it, like even if you draft Jeanty 101, like he would be today if I have to make the selection I'm 101, I'm taking Jeanty. I think this is still a guy that when it's all said and done, come September when people are doing startup drafts right before the NFL season, I think Jeanty's like a second round startup pick. Like people are going to be taking him right underneath that Bijan Gibbs. We talked about it the other day. Like I
Mhm.
think Jeanty's going to come in and be like running back 3 or 4 right away.
Yeah, no, I can see it. I can definitely
So
see it.
I don't know. I don't think it's a bad investment. Even if you don't want the running back, just to draft the running back in Jeanty, let him get to that 103 or that RB3 ranking behind those two guys, and then capitalize for a bag. But anyways, I just thought I'd bring it up because I've seen that 101 get traded a ton. Let's go to this deal. We got the 12-team superflex tiered PPR. So for those at home that don't know what tiered PPR is, it's pretty simple. Running backs get half a point per reception. Wide receivers get 1 point, and tight ends get 1.5. So everybody just gets an extra half point depending on the position. At start 10, the picks, he says, are in the 8 slot. So you got the 108 and the 208. And Chris Olave being sent for Amon-Ra St. Brown. So you're sending the first, a second, and Olave to get Amon-Ra?
I'm leaning the Amon-Ra side. This package is not enough. It's not enough for Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I say that before you even gave the context that it was a late first and a late second. I would have not, like, I don't know who could still be this high on Chris Olave at this point. Not saying that he's not going to be valuable, but he's nowhere near the stratosphere of Amon-Ra at this point in time. I just lean the Amon-Ra side. To me, this is a steal for the person who's receiving Amon-Ra in this deal.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's very context dependent. And I wish we could kind of figure out whether or not they're like a competitive roster or a rebuilding roster, because I think I would change my opinion either way. In a rebuild, I could make an argument for the Olave, the first and the second, because I like to tear down my assets and get multiple assets. And I think doing that in this deal, it's good enough compensation that I'm okay with it. But that being said, in a contending window and a team that's competitive, I'm easily willing to give that type of package up to go get Amon-Ra St. Brown. So I think it's a little bit closer to fair than I think you might have given it credit for, depending on the context. But there's no doubt about it to me. I'm taking Amon-Ra St. Brown as the best player in the deal, and I probably want him. He has the contract. He doesn't have the, little bit of concussion worries that some people have with Chris Olave. He has an actual quarterback and things like that. There's one thing and one narrative that I'm going to be interested to hear and kind of follow throughout throughout the offseason. And it's if Ben Johnson truly does leave and go get that head coaching job, what does this offense in Detroit look like next year?
It's a fair concern. It's a fair concern because me and you off camera, we've talked about the idea that if Ben Johnson leaves, that thing falls apart. So I mean, like, yeah, it's a pretty good question.
I mean, he is the offensive mastermind, and they haven't been shy about saying that Ben Johnson is kind of the offensive guy there that's making this whole thing hum. They're gonna have to find a guy who can replace him. Is Dan Campbell gonna have to start taking over offensive play calling? If he does, that feels like that's a big unknown. I don't know, man. We'll see what happens. I'm not saying that it's gonna be bad, but it's gonna be interesting to see what changes. Ben Johnson leaving is not good for the Detroit Lions. Just let that be known. And I think that there's a good chance that Ben Johnson probably leaves this offseason.
Yeah, I agree. And it's no guarantee that Ben Johnson will be able to replicate what he's doing wherever he goes. But one thing that I feel fairly certain about is that the Lions won't be able to replicate what Ben Johnson was doing while he was there. So
Yeah, and that's a good point too, because wherever Ben Johnson goes, it doesn't really matter where he goes. He's not going to have Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, Bijan, Amon-Ra St. Brown. I don't know why I'm saying all these other names. And then he's not going to have Sam Laporta, the best offensive line in football. He's not going to have all of that at the next spot. So
yeah,
yeah, it definitely helps. But give me Amon-Ra here, despite the worries. I just wanted to throw that out there. It's not something that I'm like really baking into my offseason process right now, but I think it's something that we should pay attention to. But I think you could make an argument either way. Give me the Amon-Ra side, though. Let's go to this trade here. You got Joel and Hendo, 12-team superflex PPR, tight end premium, 6-point passing touchdowns. You get a quarter point per first down, and it's start 10. He says he's retooling. So you got CJ Stroud and Xavier Worthy being bought for Trevor Lawrence and Jackson Smith-Njigba. Now, the retooling thing, this is interesting to me because CJ young, Trevor young, Xavier Worthy young, Jackson Smith young. So everybody's young in the deal. It's just now it feels like preference. When it comes to this deal, how do you feel about it?
I mean, I feel like Jackson Smith-Njigba makes Hendo the winner of this deal. I think Stroud, and I hate to say it because how did this happen? I feel like Stroud came down closer to Trevor Lawrence at this point, and I just think Jackson Smith-Njigba is like far and above Xavier Worthy. So I mean, with that, I feel like the difference in the players, I think Hendo is the winner in this deal. I feel like Stroud. I feel like the season Stroud is having, I feel like he can rebound from it. But the problem is that usually, and I won't even say usually, a lot of the times where a rookie has a sophomore slump, because I think we can agree that that's what this is. A sophomore slump, it's like a 50-50 chance of whether or not he even becomes close to what he was his rookie season versus what he is this season. I think what he is this season is closer to what he'll be for his career, but I don't think it's going to be as bad. But Trevor Lawrence almost kind of in the same exact position, but a little bit older. I don't know if he's going to regain form ever. So I mean, they could be two players looking in the mirror at each other. Like CJ Stroud could be looking at Trevor Lawrence as his future potentially if he don't get things turned around. But if it's one thing I'm sure of in this deal is that JSN is far and above Xavier Worthy at this point in time.
Yeah, I think I agree with a majority of that. I think for me, if I'm kind of like just trying to look at these assets and say, okay, how do I value them? Like if I were to plug them in my roster, what kind of expectation would I have for them production wise? So I think if I plug Trevor into my roster, I'm expecting kind of high end QB2 numbers. CJ Stroud, even though he didn't give us them this year, I am expecting those low end QB1s. Like that, I want those low end QB1 numbers. Xavier Worthy, he's a guy that I think I'm comfortable throwing in as like my wide receiver 3 and seeing what kind of boom he can give me each week. But there's also going to be weeks where he really busts and gives you 2, 3, 4 points. JSN though, this is like low end wide receiver 1, high end wide receiver 2 numbers. So that's a pretty significant gap from Worthy, who's giving you those boom bust wide receiver 3 week. Whereas I think the high end quarterback play from Trevor Lawrence to the low end quarterback play in CJ Stroud isn't a massive difference. That's kind of the way that I would look at it. And I think because of that, I do lean the Trevor Lawrence and the JSN side. I think this is probably a good sell high on Xavier Worthy at the moment. I just did a wide receiver recap for the rookie class, and I did talk about how I I felt like Xavier Worthy was probably a sell at this point, based off of he had a pretty good 3 or 4 game stretch there to end the regular season for the Chiefs. But I reminded people, like, this is also a team that lost Rashee Rice, and Rashee Rice was the guy who was getting 10, 11, 12, 13 targets each week, and he's going to be back next year. And Isiah Pacheco was injured for a good portion of this year, who's going to be back and healthy next year under full strength. And there's going to be maybe a chance that they go out and get another guy. Maybe they re-sign Hollywood Brown, who didn't play a majority of the year. Like, there's going to be changes around Worthy. And quite honestly, like, this was not, don't hear what I'm not saying. This isn't the ceiling for Xavier Worthy as a player, as a fantasy asset, but this was about as good of an opportunity as he could have got as a rookie. I mean, everybody around him got injured and was out, and it was basically the Xavier Worthy's show. Like, it was just his opportunity to go out and play, and he was streaky and he was raw, and he wasn't, an elite wide receiver asset for fantasy. And he's a rookie, so we'll give him the grace. He's got to come in and learn that. But at the end of the day, like, he may not get another opportunity in Kansas City where he's the only receiving option outside of Travis Kelce. So I think that's probably why I'm looking at him as a sell high at the moment. And I think this is probably a good example of selling high on Worthy. Obviously, like I said, I still prefer CJ Stroud to Trevor Lawrence, but I bet their production is fairly close, at least closer than the gap is going to be between Worthy and Njigba.
Yeah, I agree 100%. We pretty much said the same thing, but you said it way better. But yeah, pretty much that's where I'm at too. JSN is the difference maker in this deal.
Fair enough. Let's go to the next one. Another 101. 12 team superflex, full PPR, half point tight end premium, and start 9. Bijan Robinson being received for the 101. Rashee Rice and DeAndre Swift war. I know how I feel about this one. This is the thumbnail trade. I think the thumbnail, it says, "Are you serious?" That's how I'm feeling. How are you feeling?
Man, I lean the 101 side.
Lean or guaranteed the 101 side?
Guarantee. I guarantee the 101 side. It's not particularly, that might be underselling. It's not particularly difficult either. Like, I tried to, the DeAndre Swift sitting at the top makes it like weird to look at, but once you start going down the line, it just starts to get like a little bit worse. Like, okay, DeAndre Swift, Rashee Rice, 101. So basically, let me get this straight. You could potentially, and potential is a dangerous word, but we're going to use it, potentially draft a player 101 that's akin to Bijan Robinson, and you're getting, as fluff, a potential wide receiver 1 and a running back 2, running back 3, whatever. But, yeah, man, this deal is kind of a landslide, man. And Bijan, he's good. He's very, very good. But yeah.
Now, the person who submitted this, their username insinuates that they are a Atlanta sports fan. So
it's always dangerous.
he might be trading for his guy here, which I get it. I'm all for trading for your guy, but sometimes we gotta look ourselves in the mirror and say, am I overpaying for my guy? Which I think you are in this scenario. Look, I said the best way to earn value long term and build rosters that really dominate in fantasy football is by being able to predict the market, because there is a market that we are playing in. Just like the stock market, players are going to trend up and down. And if you can try and do your best to predict and project the market and buy guys when their value is low, sell them when their value is high, it sounds very basic fundamentals, I know, but that is literally what we are doing here. When I'm trying to project the market, I think that 101, when I put Ashton Jeanty there, I see a world where Jeanty and Bijan are back-to-back in Dynasty rankings, or at least, a running back apart in Dynasty rankings. And if that's the case, I think that there's a scenario where in the future, you could trade Jeanty and Swift alone, and it would get you Bijan. And there would be situations where some people would maybe give you something with Bijan to go get Jeanty, assuming he goes out and has a good year. Like, I think that's kind of the way that I would see it from a projection standpoint. So getting Rashee Rice, who I believe is a low-end wide receiver 1, probably a top 15 wide receiver in my Dynasty rankings when it's all said and done, like, that's cherry on top. This is a landslide to me. I get the wide receiver production, I get the elite running back in the 101, and you just throw me DeAndre Swift as like another piece that I can plug in bye weeks and depth and injuries and things like that. Like, and Swift can go out and give me 10, 15 points on a good week. So I think this is a landslide to me. again, I'm all for going to get your guy. And if you're a Falcons fan and Bijan is your guy, I get it. But I think you overpaid to do it.
Yeah, man. I mean, this is pretty much open and shut on this one, man.
Let's go to the next. You got this trade here, 12-team Superflex, full PPR, 0.75 tight end premium, so a little bit juicier on the tight end premium, and it's start 10. Your boy, Chicago Bears wide receiver DJ Moore, and the 204 being acquired for Jaylen Waddle, your other boy, and a 2026 third. So how are we feeling about the DJ Moore, Jaylen Waddle swap? You must feel like this is like trying to pick between your sons.
Yeah, this is real difficult. Don't worry, I'm not frozen.
I know.
um, I'm gonna reluctantly lean the DJ Moore side because I'm getting that early second round draft capital.
It's a draft capital that swayed it.
Yes. Otherwise I'm picking Waddle, even though he really upset me this season. DJ Moore side. I'll tell you what it is. The DJ Moore side is a lot safer. Waddle, I don't know what's happening with Tua from year to year. I don't know, was last season an aberration or like, is it going to be signs of things to come? I don't know when Tyreek is actually going to leave, so I think DJ Moore is the safer side because conventional wisdom would tell you that there's no way in hell that Caleb Williams, even though he had a decent rookie season, some reason people think he didn't, even though there's no way Caleb won't be at least a little bit better, and there's no way that the coaching won't be a little bit better. So I think you at least have a safe floor with DJ Moore, not trying to rhyme, but yeah. And you're getting a high-end second-round draft capital, so that's the side I would lean.
Yeah, I think for me, man, like I agree with most of what you're saying here. I think Jaylen Waddle has the higher upside. He's more enticing, I think, as a wide receiver asset. DJ Moore feels, for lack of a better term, he feels boring in Dynasty at this point. Like nobody really wants DJ Moore because we've been excited about DJ Moore for 5-6 years now, and everybody's just like, well, DJ Moore always does what he does and goes out and he plays like a wide receiver 2, and we always want him to be a wide receiver 1, and he's boring. And I think that's what makes. You said what?
I said that's why he got the 2 on his jersey.
Yeah, it's a bona fide wide receiver 2. So, I think they're fairly similar assets. The situation where maybe if you go get Jaylen Waddle and Jaylen Waddle has Tyreek Hill leave this offseason, that makes you feel very excited, and then you feel like you won this one. But the draft capital is enough to make me lean DJ Moore in the 204. But honestly, I don't feel strongly either way. I think you could take either side of this deal and explain your thought process to me, and I'd say, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. I think that, that's pretty much like, if we're talking like straight up apples for apples, I'm taking Jaylen Waddle, but it's the draft capital, it's the safeness, it's the fact that the third you're getting is next season. Like,
is this the fairest deal of the day?
Yeah, so far, yeah, definitely.
Probably. I'm thinking it's between that one and the Drake Maye Kyler Murray. That might be the other fair deal of the day. Let's go to the next one though. We got Aaron Jones and Deebo Samuel being traded for Isiah Pacheco in a early third. 12-team Superflex PPR half-point tight end premium. Team number 1 says they're contending. So, as a contending roster, they buy Deebo and Aaron Jones. How you feel about that?
This deal, I don't feel too much about this deal. This deal doesn't get my fire started. Like, I'm just looking at the pieces, and like, there's not one piece in this deal that excites me. Aaron Jones, Deebo Samuel. Okay, I'll give the guy who acquired Aaron Jones deal. So I think he achieved his goal. It's just that the players are just meh. Isiah Pacheco, I'm pretty sure he's done. So I mean, yeah, he's done. I don't think that dude's keeping his. Yeah. Because I think we talked about it in previous videos before. He was on that list of guys where we're just like, oh man, this draft, you better watch your ass in this draft. He was on that list, and he's come back from his injury and he's looked like trash. So I mean, that's
in all fairness, that is a very tough injury to come back from and play on the same year. That's the reason why in our redraft league that you and I play in, I traded him away when it happened, because I knew even if he did come back this year, like, that is hard to play on. And so I do want to give him the grace there, but I agree with you where, like, there's guys in the 3rd, 4th round of this NFL draft, maybe even the 5th round of this NFL draft, where like you could bring them in and they would at least earn a role, a Kareem Hunt type of role with Isiah Pacheco, and it would be interesting.
Well, when you're a running back in the NFL and you get some type of like leg injury or something like that, they treat you like a racehorse. They send you to the glue factory, and That's could be exactly, and the glue factory for Isiah Pacheco is the Clyde Edwards-Helaire realm of I'm on the team, but I'm kind of not on the team. So, and
Mm.
the Chiefs cycle through running backs like nobody's business. So I wouldn't feel comfortable at all if I was Isiah Pacheco. You could potentially be
When's his
drafting
contract
Isiah.
up?
I don't know.
Is that this? It's next offseason, isn't it? Let's see. I'm gonna look it up.
All
You can
right.
keep talking about your point. I'll look it up.
Yeah, you could potentially be drafting Isiah Pacheco's replacement with that 301 that you acquired in this deal. That's the type of situation it is. But I think
That's
for that,
interesting. I feel like you think you can get a Pacheco talent at 301. I mean, for most people,
if
you got Pacheco's talent at the 5 whatever it was that year.
okay, I mean, if you're the running back whisperer like me, you could get Pacheco's replacement
There you go.
301.
Let me
But
see. Of course, it's as I want to load this up, it's like my phone just doesn't have any internet capability at all.
that's how this morning is going.
That's exactly how this morning is going. I think he has one more year, if I remember correctly. Let me see. I'm gonna try one more time somewhere else. But yeah, look, I'm looking at this and I feel kind of the same way. I think if we were gonna look at value wise, like Deebo Samuel and Isiah Pacheco feel like similar valued assets in my opinion, at least at the moment. Pacheco probably valued down a little bit, and Deebo's value is probably down a little bit too, but he's the wide receiver, so you give him a little bit of a bump because of the position that he plays. Aaron Jones for the 301, that feels pretty easy to me if you're a competitive roster and you're trying to go, get some points. I think Aaron Jones is still going to have a role next year. That said, as the fellow Vikings fan in the room, I believe that Aaron Jones needs to be a complementary piece in this backfield. I think that they need to go get a running back in this draft to be the hammer, because I don't think Aaron Jones can be the bell cow here. He's fine when you give him, like, I think the perfect scenario to me is if you gave like Aaron Jones 10 to 12 touches a game and let him rip off 8-9 yard runs, those few touches that he gets, that would be perfect for Aaron Jones in that offense. And they need somebody who can sit there and grind in between the tackles and get banged up and get hit, and that needs to be the young guy, kind of like you remember when they were doing the Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb running back room in Cleveland, and Kareem was kind of the change of pace receiving back. I think that's what Jones needs to be moving forward.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that.
So we'll see. I think I take the Deebo and the Aaron Jones side though by just a little bit. I'm looking at this contract by Pacheco, and he is a free agent next offseason, unrestricted free agent. He is in the final year of his deal going into 2025. So
But don't you just hate the idea of acquiring a running back Aaron Jones's age this early in the offseason?
100%.
I feel like
yeah.
there's just so much that could happen between now and the start of the next season that could just make Aaron Jones just obsolete. So I mean, it's
100%.
tough.
If Minnesota decides that, hey, we're just going to go with the rookie entirely and we aren't going to bring Jones back, then he hits the open market. That feels so risky and so dangerous for Aaron Jones' overall dynasty value.
Yeah, I agree.
Like I think his best situation is that he gets another 1 year, 2 year deal to stay in Minnesota the rest of his career. That's like the best scenario for him.
Yeah, I agree.
So I don't know. We'll go on to the next one. I don't think we have too many more, maybe 2 or 3. Maybe not that much. Jonathan Taylor, the 109 for Jalen McMillan, the 104 and the 404. This is a 14-team league, superflex, PPR, tight end premium. You get 1 point per first down. That is for the rushing and receiving only. It is a start 10, and this was an orphan team. So RJ took over the orphan, and then he trades Jalen McMillan in the 104 on the orphan to get the 109 and Jonathan Taylor. I think he also mentioned that he was strong at wide receiver and he needed running back. So how do you feel?
I think for the context of his team, it's probably a good idea. But just looking at the trade itself, I'm smashing the Jalen McMillan side. I'm sorry, man. Like,
really,
I feel like, look, I'm so high on Jalen McMillan. And I think it's because I personally sat back and watched him eliminate me from a redraft league this season. Like, I'm so high on Jalen McMillan. And you're getting a top 4 pick. Never mind the 404. You're getting a top 4 pick and Jalen McMillan. You have to realize Jalen McMillan could potentially not only be Chris Godwin's replacement. I think we talked about that before. Chris Godwin's replacement, but he could also be the heir apparent to Mike Evans. So I mean, he balled out this year, and I for one, and I traded for him in the league. I didn't expect it. I thought he was gonna be like Jalen Polk, like just the same, just the same type of deal. But no, man, this dude came out and he showed out, and I think his future is real bright. Jonathan Taylor is still a top end running back. He's up there in age. And you're trading a young wide receiver for a running back, which I'm never against, especially on the running back on the older side, and getting the top pick. So yeah, man, I'm smashing that Jalen McMillan side.
Yeah, I think this deal almost feels like this deal could have been done just slightly differently in a way. Like it feels like something's off and I can't place my mind on it, like where it's at. I think the 104 feels like it should have got me Jonathan Taylor. Maybe I shouldn't have got that 109 back. Like I'd almost have been better trading like the 104 for Jonathan Taylor and like a second maybe, and that's what I would have got. Instead, I would have been able to keep Jalen McMillan. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out where it feels a little bit off, but the 1 point per first down, I think you understated that because that is a significant points difference for Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor is going to get a bunch of first downs, whereas Jalen McMillan, he has to catch those first downs, right? Like he's not going to get as many first downs as Jonathan Taylor, and a whole point for the first down, that feels crazy. So I think that needs to be discussed a little bit more. Also, Jalen McMillan, I love Jalen McMillan. I think the things that he did this year were really good. There's just one minor yellow flag that I think needs to be brought up that people are not talking about. The production in which Jalen McMillan had at the end of the year was very, very touchdown dependent. He scored a ton of touchdowns. I think there was a stretch there where he had like 5 touchdowns in 3 games. And as we've seen before, we've talked about this with the Brock Bowers and the Sam Laporta comparisons. When you have a bunch of touchdowns and not a ton of receiving yards and not a ton of receptions and things like that, it can get skewed a little bit. And people start thinking, hey, that PPG, that points per game that I'm getting out of Jalen McMillan is elite. But it's because he caught 5 or 6 touchdowns to end the year. And then he doesn't get those 5 or 6 touchdowns next year, and all of a sudden people are like, well, what the hell happened to Jalen McMillan? He fell off a cliff. Yeah, it's because the touchdowns didn't go his way. So that yellow flag is the touchdown production to me. I need to dive a little bit more into the deeper analytics. If people are looking for other resources, one of my favorite resources to always recommend to people because I think he does an incredible job, Matt Harmon's reception perception. He shows you how people are succeeding as route runners, and it doesn't take into account whether or not they are catching the football and scoring touchdowns. It's just, did they win the route or did they lose the route against the defense? And I think that that's one of the better things to look at. I haven't seen Jalen McMillan's profile to finish the year. Those don't come out until later in the offseason, but I'll be very interested to see how he was winning his routes or whether it was all touchdown production and not really winning a ton of routes. So I don't want to sound negative. I do think he took a step forward, and I'm intrigued by Jalen McMillan. I have him on a few rosters where I'm probably going to be holding him until I see those percentages come out. Once I see those come out, I'll decide what I want to do with him. But yeah, man, it feels like RJ Drummer probably makes close to a fair deal here, but I think there might be a little bit of value still left on the table.
Yeah, I can see it there. Just threw cold water all over my Jalen McMillan hype. You just threw cold water all over
Sorry.
me. Crushed ice.
I don't want to be the Debbie Downer there. In all fairness, I did say, based on in our rookie recap video, I did say that Jalen McMillan to me was a hold, slightly leaning towards a buy, just in the value tier that he's sitting in over on Keep Trade Cut. Like there are players there around him that I would much rather sell to go get Jalen McMillan. So I think sometimes we need to take the lenses off and look at it critically, and the touchdowns are somewhat concerning. It's not bad to score touchdowns. Don't hear what I'm not saying. You want your players to score touchdowns, but when a lot of the production is heavily reliant on the touchdowns, that's when I'm like, okay, we need to look at this a little bit critically. So hopefully you don't.
Good too for him in his case that he's doing it in his rookie season. So
Yeah. And Godwin's a free agent, so that could definitely make the hype go even crazier. Let's look at Joel's trade again. We had another Joel trade. Deebo Samuel, a first and a second in 2026. He trades away Christian McCaffrey, James Conner, Jacoby Myers. This is a 12-team superflex PPR tight end premium, 6-point passing touchdown, quarter point per first down, and start 10. He's retooling. So in a retool, you send away McCaffrey, Conner, Myers. You get the draft capital. How you feel? This is self-explanatory in my opinion.
I guess I'm going with the 26 first side. I'm going with the 26 first side. Deebo, but you're getting Deebo Samuels back. Why? Why are we getting Deebo Samuels back? Like
I think a lot of people see Deebo Samuel as a buy low right now.
He is, but just I'm sorry if I missed the context. Is Joel rebuilding or what? Because that's a lot of he's retooling. I mean, okay, I guess if you get back an older player retooling, then it makes sense. But he definitely traded 2 old running backs and a kind of productive wide receiver and got back some good draft capital. So yeah, I mean, I lean his side. It's just a big trade. It's a lot of things put on the trade board.
I mean, I think it makes sense to me, honestly. Like in a retool, if I can get off of Christian McCaffrey at this point and in a deal where I get a first and a second in the future, I'm down for it. I think James Conner and Deebo, they're probably fairly similar assets at this point. Value-wise, probably you lean towards Deebo Samuel even more there. But yeah, being able to get the first and the second in a deal for Christian McCaffrey, I'm for it. I do think that Christian McCaffrey is potentially a buy low for contending rosters going into the offseason. But yeah, for a retooling roster, I'm not buying Christian McCaffrey. So I'm down for this. It's self-explanatory. I'm going to take the Deebo on the first side.
I'm with you. I'm with you on that.
All right. And I think that's the last trade of the day. So that was it. We did talk about 10 Dynasty Fantasy Football trades. So for the folks at home, if you didn't get your trade reviewed on this one, keep submitting in that Discord. That is the best way to get your chance of trades being pulled, is by submitting a bunch of trades. So make sure you go submit those. If you are watching this for the first time and you've never submitted a trade in our Discord is free to join. It is linked in the description. I strongly suggest that you go down there, join that Discord, start submitting some Dynasty Fantasy Football trades, and we might talk about them on the next episode. We're going to be trying to do this through the offseason at least once a month, hopefully twice a month, depending on the amount of trades that are submitted. But I have nothing else really for you guys today. If you like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you like the video, found something valuable, entertaining, actionable, anything like that, hit the like button, show us some support there. And where can they find you at if they want some additional content?
If you want to check out pro wrestling right now, pro wrestling is hot. Check us out on Crimson Mass Professional Wrestling on our channel, and we're on a break right now.
Did I distract you or some shit?
Yeah, I distracted myself. Crimson Mass Pro Wrestling, darn it, that's who we are, WWE. And we're gonna have some interesting things coming up.
I had a hair on my hoodie. I had to pull it off. I feel like I distracted you there for a second, dude. Fuck it, whatever. That is it, folks. Nothing else for you. Like we said, like, subscribe, do all that stuff, comment, whatever. If you don't like us, whatever. It is what it is. Sorry. I'm glad you watched the rest of this video. Now I'm talking shit. We got to get out of here. Fuck this. All right. See you on the next one. Peace out.